everybody. This is Joshua Packard, and this is my week 3 um, editing for the comping. And I'll do my best to keep this pretty brief, but I want to kind of show you guys how I managed to go ahead and get what I feel like is an accurate, I think, perfect replica of this. So I found first and foremost that one of the more difficult things to try and do is to go to this section, right, and hear it and listen to it and then bounce through, all of these, individually one by one. It's just really painstaking process. So instead, what I decided to do is I took the original, just like so, and I'll copy it. No, I'll just take this last one out just to show you. All right, so I took the original, and what I would do is I would go through each one of these clips that they have here, right? So I would select this one, and then rather than having to jump back and forth across the screen and all of that, you can layer this directly above all of the different takes. Now, it's still a little bit of a process, but it certainly does take away a lot of the back and forth. So, for instance, I went through and I said, okay, I want to start and try and find this first one, and then I would solo it out. I would listen to it a bunch of times, make sure I got it in my head, and then I would go down and then just solo. And since this selection right here is still selected, when I solo this track and I play it, I'm not sure if I have siphon set up, so you may not be able to hear it. However, so when you hear the first one and you get used to hearing it, then you can go down and solo, play, solo, play, solo, play, and you can decide, okay, this section right here didn't have that first one, but you can listen to it directly above, right in line, and this will help you get, if you really listen carefully, you can hear all of the little, different intricacies, and again, because you're not going back and forth, you're right in line. So let's say none of these worked out. I would take this entire section and I would just shift it over to this section and I would go through, same process. So if you're finding if you're finding that you're having a difficult time finding the right one, or it's just taking you forever and you decide, I'll just use this when it's close enough. If you want to go ahead and take the time to do it this way, you'll find that even though it takes a little bit of time, it is a lot easier. And I found, like I said, that I think that I have a perfect replica just because I was able to go back and hear. And some of them will sound almost identical, but one of the little notes in the chord that he's playing, is different, than this one and this one. So you can find the exact ones that way. So in any event, that's what I did there. And then once the next thing I did was, once I felt like I had all of the correct clips, I had found all this, individual ones, and I got them all lined up. The next thing I did to make my life a little easier was I took this in its first collected form, and I dragged it and brought it right up underneath this other one just for editing. Just for editing purposes, so that I could make sure that my clip placement was directly in line. So here you can see this one looks like it might actually be just a tad bit off here. But you can see the other ones, these are all lined up nice and perfect, and I also know now in comparison that I have the right ones because my waveforms are identical. And then I just, did my crossfades, and then I made sure to copy this. So I really was able to make sure that everything was perfect. So here, for instance, I can see this one's not quite lined up quite right. So I'll just hop over here into slip mode. I'll open this up a little bit more, and I'll just do I can either nudge it, which will work, or in slip mode I can just line it right up. Another thing I like to do, and I'm trying to do this too, is now that I feel like it's pretty close, what I'll do is I'll just select a tiny section, and then I'll come down and see if they're lining up. So you can get really, really, really perfect if you want, and that's looking pretty dang close right there. Let's just shift that just a tiny bit, grab this, and there you go. Now you can see, let's get a little Okay, so now you can see they're lining up perfectly. All right. A little more nudge maybe. So, it's up to you how intricate you want to get, but this is this is almost exact perfect here. Okay. So that was how I accomplished this. Probably took me about 20 minutes in total. Alright. And crossfades are still good. And come over here and I will just go ahead and trim this. Oh. Trim this up here. Go into grid mode. Make sure I'm nice and perfect. Oh. Save. Alright, so there you go. So now I've been able to quickly, using this, go through each of the takes and find the exact one and then promote it as so when I found it. And then I took what I made and I brought it up under here. Was able to use their work to compare to mine and to get it perfectly in sync. So there's that. Now for the rest of the track, it does say you need to comp and correct the timing of all the other elements of the track. I'm not sure if I missed any other comp takes that we're supposed to do. I believe. Let's see. Let's just take a quick look here. Okay, so I opened up playlist that says comp, but there's nothing there. All right, so I believe that's all we have to do as far as comping and correcting as far as that section is concerned for those guitars. So now the rest of it, there are other tracks I have found that do need a little bit of attention moving down the tracks here. So we have already worked on all of the kicks. If you did not see the last video I posted, I did find that this kick right here does in fact fall off a little bit. So it's supposed to be conformed to the grid and it's a machine. However, the timing in that machine is still just a tiny bit off. So I went up and I found that it was pretty good right through the beginning, but then as we got towards the end of the first section, around in this area, I found that some of these kicks were a little bit off. And so if you're still trying to get things lined up properly and you're not feeling like you're as tight as you could be to the grid with all of your percussion and drums, take a look at this kick right here and just make sure, if you feel like it's fine, then that's up to you. But I did find that it was in fact just a little bit off. So beat detective on that. Took about 3 minutes and that was all done. Moving down here, I know that I did go through and check these. Some of them I did adjust. I think all of these were fine. I did check the bass, this bass AD, and these, I think this is instrument sub. Not sure what that, no, subgroup, sorry, not that one, this one. So this one I did end up doing a little bit of warping, as you can see right here. Be careful when you're doing these. You do want to go through and listen. So in this section right here, for instance, you need to pay close attention that there's not a bunch of warp markers here, because this is a long sample, relatively anyway. So with those beat markers, you can get a little bit of wobble. You want this sound needs to be nice and smooth, just like it is when it's played. And when you start warping things, if you find yourself getting a whole bunch of these, go in and clean it up. That's my suggestion, because you will hear that little bit of wobble. Now maybe in the entire mix you might not hear it with everything else playing, but as you can see, I've gone through and these are nice and clean, each one. So here's an example right here. You see where these analysis markers are. All right, so I went ahead and I took those warps out because I want it to be the same. I want it to be consistent. I don't want any change there. I just want the sample to line up, and I want the sample to hit right on time, but I want the sample to play normally without any warping in it. and you can see that happen quite a few times. There's there and here as well, so just be mindful of that. So I did some warping on that. So let's see. I can't remember all of the ones that I did specifically. That'll be kind of up to you, but I do suggest that you go through and listen. This Moog's, the chime. This chime was a little bit off. Now, again, in the mix, it may not be a huge deal, but, if we're going to edit and do it properly. So you can see this is probably right about where it was originally. And you can see here how it's jumping just in front a little bit. So I did go ahead and just give that a quick nudge, quick little shift, and I did it to all of them. What else here? I'm going to jump down. So, and I did, again, yes, go through everything. Just listen to it. Give it a nudge here and there. Some of the stuff does need it. One thing I do want to bring up and show you guys here is this guitar part and this one. So these guitar parts also need a little bit of work, and I noticed that they were just a little bit off. This was another one I went through. As you can see, I used all Elastic Audio for absolutely everything, because I have found that it really is just a lot quicker, and then you don't have to deal with like filling in gaps and whatnot. This guitar lead here, I wanted to clean it up. I wanted it to be on beat. Sometimes with these guitar sections and guitar leads, those little mess ups or like off beat a little bit, it does kind of add a little bit of flavor depending on the artist and depending obviously on what your client wants. But just listen through to that, and you will find there's going to be a couple spots where it just sounds a little off, and when I put the Elastic Audio and I played it back with a full mix, it sounded a little bit better to me, so I went ahead and did that. And then let's see the last. So her vocals, I didn't notice anything on the lead vocal. I didn't feel like there was any kind of issues. The background stem, I think I may need to actually go through this one again and just double check. I don't remember if I went through that. Let's see. And the last thing. So this last section, it repeats not about, right? That was actually off a little bit as well. Just took a little bit of nudging, but I did find that it was off a little bit. I did pull it back just a slight little bit there. But overall, it was off a little bit, and it really sounded annoying because it's already kind of annoying personally. Because it's really loud and repetitive. But we have here this Vox Moog, and this is meant to be layered over this so that when they play it together, you hear a little bit of some distortion and some fading in and out. And I even went a little further because I wanted to, and went to the not about, and I pulled it down just a little bit, and I also brought up this layer, that's this process sound effects layer. And I brought it up a little bit just as a personal thing. I don't even know if we're actually supposed to mess with the mix, but it was annoying me, so I dealt with it. And then this last bit, these gang vocals, it says cut and ad libs for fun in the mix. I didn't find anything in there that I felt was even remotely in sync with the song as far as the content. So there wasn't a point where the lead vocalist said something and then I found that a good laugh after that from the gang vocals would work or something like that. It just didn't work for me. But what I did do is I went ahead and I automated the volume, but I left this first little snippet right here because it does actually kind of, for me anyway, it sounds like it kind of works. And since we have all this dead space here, as you can see in the beginning, right before this first little bit of percussion intro, so you see you got silence all through here, and then there's this this intro that leads into the first downbeat. So I decided to actually keep that little gang vocal part because it works out. So you can listen to the MP3 that I'm going to upload after I'm done with this here, and you'll know what I'm talking about. So yeah, that's it. I went through everything, and I just went down and left all of my drums on. The way I went through this entire project is I left all of my drums soloed, and then I went through each one by one, soloed, check for timing. Go to the next track, solo, check for timing. Next track, solo, check for timing. And you can add on, but I would be careful. I would suggest just maybe keeping some of your drums or all of the drums, but don't. I wouldn't add in. I wouldn't solo and then keep it on, and then solo the next one, etc., and leaving them all on and build. I would think that it would be better for you to go through solo, individual, check it, turn it off, solo the next one. That way, you're not muddying up what you're listening to, and you can focus on the timing. And then once you've gone through everything, then you can unsolo and listen to it as a whole piece. That's kind of my advice for just making sure that you're hearing everything properly and that it's in line. So that's going to be it for me. Thank you guys for watching and listening. I hope this is helpful, and can't wait to hear all of your work as well. Thanks.